So I'm going to talk about how to blend operational and analytical capabilities to better address the needs of data-intensive financial applications. So I will first start with a small introduction to LeanXcale. We are a new database vendor. LeanXcale is the result of 20 years of research on scalable transactional management and data management and several other features. And currently, we are working with several big companies, especially in the banking and financial sector and other related sectors like telco, retail, and travel technology. So let me introduce the main topic of today's talk, that is how to make decisions at the right time. As you know, in most organizations, what happens today is that data is split into two different kinds of database systems. We have on one hand the operational database. On the other hand, we have the data warehouse. The operational database is good at keeping the consistency of the data while it's being updated, while the data warehouse is good at doing fast analytical queries. However, they are two separated systems. And now, because of this separation, one has to copy the data from one into the other in the well-known copy process known as ETL, extract, transform, load. This process is very expensive in terms of implementation and keeping it operational, and it's estimated that can cost between 75 to 80% of the budget of doing business analytics. Additionally, from the moment that we make the copy into the data warehouse, we are doing analytical queries over obsolete data. So what is our value proposition? So what we have done is to create an ultra-scalable operational database. This is one of the main differentiators that we have. This operational database is able to bear any load. It can even bear the load of a mainframe. As you know, till now, there was no other technology able to substitute the mainframe. With this scalability, we don't only have an operational database. We have also built a distributed data warehouse that works directly on this operational data. And with this, we provided two capabilities. So now we have a single database system with these two capabilities, and therefore now you don't need to perform ETLs anymore. And additionally, now your analytical queries will be on operational data, so you will get a real-time big data. So I will go now through a few use cases we are involved with some of our customers. So one of them is to perform real-time risk assessment. So this is a typical case where you have a stock trades that they have very high frequency. Because of this very high frequency and high volume, it creates a lot of problems on existing database technology. And this is the perfect scenario for us. Additionally, one has to keep operational data about transactions related to open and file orders. And one has to keep the solution either highly available or be able to recover it relatively fast. Additionally, now one has to be able to perform the analytical queries over this fast-moving data. And they have to provide an accurate result. So where are we helping for this use case? On one hand, thanks to our scalability, we're able to ingest the data at any speed, even at the speed of the stock trades at the global level. The database is full operational database, providing full asset consistency, so you know that the data that is stored there will preserve the coherence independently of what happens, whether there are failures or concurrent accesses. We can also provide high availability, so you know that the system will be continuously available, despite some nodes might fail. And then one can perform the analytical queries over this operational data. So another feature that we have that is very interesting is that our database has a storage engine, and this storage engine is also a relational key value data store. So this means that we are offering not only an SQL interface to the data, but also a key value interface to this data. Why is this interesting for this use case? Because as you know, the high-frequency stock trading will be a very large portion of the volume that the database will have to process. But we are able, if you want, you can ingest this data through the key-value interface that is more lightweight. For inserting rows, this is pretty simple, so it can be done with the key-value interface. And with this, one is able to highly reduce the resources that are being used to ingest this data. So they can, all this data can be ingested in a very inexpensive way, while still you have the full power of SQL for doing the analytical queries over this data. Another interesting use case that we are working, we have been working with a couple of large banks is how to use LeanXcale to offload the mainframe. As you know, those of you that have a mainframe at home, at the office, is pretty expensive. A large bank can be spending hundreds of millions per year on this technology. So one of the things, the main concern that they have is how to reduce the cost of this system. So obviously today it's difficult to decide to change or to move all the data from the mainframe to any other system. But what they are considering is putting a database by the mainframe. So this database can be updated at the same time as the mainframe, or with micro batches or with batches, or whatever the way the client prefers. But then once this database is updated with the same data as the mainframe, then I think that you can offload some of the less critical applications from the mainframe to our database. And this can be done gradually, slowly, as you gain confidence in our database. So where do we help? First, to be able to substitute the mainframe, you have to be very scalable. If you're not using the database computer, we can run on any commodity cluster. Then we provide the same warranties as the database in the mainframe. So we are a full ACID, full SQL database. We even provide the same SQL dialect, the dialect of DB2. And additionally, we provide the other features that are highly appreciated in the mainframe, such as high availability. So we can provide transparent failover, so we can match failures of any of the nodes. And additionally, we have some feature that you don't have there. That is, that we provide the distributed data warehouse that works on the operational data. So in addition to what you can perform on the mainframe, you can also perform analytical queries over the operational data. Another use case we are working on is with a startup that is creating a platform for micropayments in the telco. The idea is to use the credit that you have with the telco operator as a microbank. And you can transfer this money to make payments, micropayments, or to transfer this money to another customer. So this use case is interesting because it has to be on the cloud. So where they run this platform, because it's an international company serving different emerging markets. They have a lot of operational data, like a bank will have. That is the credit of each customer. They can have a very large number of clients, so they are starting with a few millions, but they can go to many hundreds of millions. And they have to be able to perform the same operations as a bank. So they have to be able to make micropayments, microtransfers between the clients. But then, in addition to this, they also need to perform analytics on the data to be able to perform marketing actions. They also have issues with the fraud, as whenever there is money available. So they have to be able to detect fraud and to fight fraud. And additionally, because this is an operational system, they need to be able to store KPIs about the operation of the system and be able to perform analytical queries over this. So where are we helping here? First, LeanXcale is based on a share nothing architecture, so we can run both on-premise or in the cloud. We provide all the warranties that you will get in any other operational database, so we are full active, fully transactional. We can scale as much as needed. So in the case of this startup, they are starting with a few million clients, but they expect to reach many hundreds of millions. So they know that they will be able to grow the database to any scale that they will need, any size they will need. A very important aspect, as you know, in the cloud, you pay per use. So the thing is that today, systems are dimensioned for the highest peak you expect you might receive at some point in time. But this is very expensive because now you are paying for all those resources 24/7. And now the thing is that resources maybe never you will need them, but you are paying for them 24/7. So our database has a very nice feature that is non-intrusive elasticity. We are able to provision new nodes and decommission unneeded nodes dynamically without affecting the quality of service of the running applications. And with this, then you can pay just for what you need in the cloud, because the database will be using more or less resources depending on the incoming load. The other interesting part is that it's not only an operational database, it's also a data warehouse. So it provides analytical queries that they use for the different purposes I mentioned before. I can focus on one of them, that is the fraud analysis. You know, when a case of fraud is detected, now you will need the fraud analyst to start doing a lot of queries to try to characterize what is the fraud, to determine which rules or which actions they can undertake to avoid this fraud. And this has to be done on the real-time data, because it doesn't help you to do these queries over the data from yesterday when the fraud has discovered just now. So let me go to the last point. So then, what is LeanXcale? So as I told you, we are an operational database. One of the main differentiators is our scalability. We can scale from one node to thousands of nodes. So basically, we can bear any load that you might need. We scale out linearly, and that is also one of the differentiators that we have. The underlying storage engine that we have is ultra efficient. We have a radically new architecture that no other server has today. We're able to run very efficiently on the new hardware that is multi-core and is evolving into many core. And they are new architectures that today all database servers run very inefficiently in this kind of architecture that are becoming the rule today. And then we also have this distributed data warehouse that provides you with the power of analytical queries, but the main differentiator is that you can perform them on the operational data. So then you can get real-time big data. We have also other features that I didn't mention because I didn't have time, but basically we provide integration with NoSQL technologies, so you can perform queries across our SQL and other NoSQL databases such as MongoDB, Neo4j, or HBase, also Hadoop data lakes, and we also provide integration with streaming technologies. This is something that is also interesting because, as you know, streaming technologies can process data at very fast rates, and typically the database, an operational database will die. In our case, we can process and we can bear any load, so it can be integrated with this technology without any trouble. So that is it. So where in the CAP triangle does our database sit? You know, there is, for those of you that might have not heard about the CAP theorem basically says that you have to choose between consistency and availability when you want to be able to deal with partitions. Partitions that in the network, imagine that we break the network into two pieces, and then you have to decide whether you want to provide availability so the two pieces operate independently, or if you want to provide consistency, and then only one of the partitions will be able to work, while the other will have to wait till the partition is healed. In our case, what we do is we provide consistency because it cannot be other way for an operational database. So in an operational database, you cannot afford to lose the consistency, so we provide consistency. But take into account that partitions are there. What is important is that independent of a partition, you don't lose the consistency. The partition typically is healed very fast. And then what is needed is that you still provide the consistency and don't break in that case. How fast is your data ingress rate? So it depends whether we talk about the storage engine or the full database with SQL. With the storage engine, I can give you the figure that we are able to ingest in a 12-core node something in the range of over 300,000 rows per second. What is the biggest production cluster your clients operate at this moment? So at this moment, we are in the beta testing stage. We have tried the solution already with 100 nodes and over 1,000 cores. Does the analytics on operational data affect the performance of it? This is a very interesting question, and is one of the main fears that people have. Our storage engine has a very nice feature that we can provide perfect performance isolation. So we can say how much resources we can devote per query or per user. And in this way, we guarantee that the operational workload will never be affected by an analytical query that might be too heavy. So we can assign perfectly the resources to the different kinds of queries and users, and be sure that when they compete for resources, each of them will get exactly the fraction we have assigned to them.